In 1952, London housed more than 8 million people. To heat their homes and drive the trains and factories that powered the nation, the city relied almost entirely on coal. Every winter day, millions of individual chimneys and industrial stacks simultaneously released thick, black exhaust into the London sky. The smoke was so common that residents viewed it as a cultural quirk rather than a health hazard. They nicknamed it pea soup fog, treating the chronic haze as a familiar, even affectionate part of city life. Londoners had spent decades adapting to this daily pollution. That collective acceptance left the population vulnerable when the local weather suddenly shifted. On December 5th, a high-pressure system settled over the region. The air became completely still, stalling the winds that usually swept the smoke out to sea. This created a temperature inversion. Warm air trapped a pocket of cold air against the ground, forming an impermeable ceiling over the skyline. As chimneys pumped out smoke, the exhaust hit this barrier and was forced back down to the streets, concentrating rapidly. The city had unknowingly locked itself in a sealed room while continuing to run the engines. The resulting smog was a thick, yellowish-black mass that smelled of sulfur. Visibility quickly dropped from miles down to mere inches. Infrastructure collapsed within hours. Buses had to be guided by workers on foot carrying flares, and even emergency ambulances were forced to stop because they could no longer find the hospitals. The smog even seeped inside theaters and concert halls. Performances were canceled because the smoke in the air made it impossible for the audience to see the screen or the stage. While the loss of sight and mobility brought the city to a halt, the chemical composition of the air presented a much more direct physical threat. Trapped near the ground was a concentrated cocktail of soot, sulfur dioxide, and toxic microscopic debris known as particulate matter. When sulfur dioxide from coal smoke mixed with water droplets in natural fog, a chemical reaction occurred, turning droplets highly acidic. Inhaling this caused immediate trauma. The acid burned the airways, triggering massive swelling that prevented oxygen from reaching the bloodstream. Residents were no longer breathing air, they were suffocating on a corrosive, aerosolized acid. Hospitals were quickly overrun by thousands of patients suffering from respiratory failure. The air was particularly lethal for children, the elderly, and those with asthma. Despite the rising death toll, officials were slow to act. They initially attempted to blame the fatalities on a sudden influenza outbreak, reluctant to admit the air itself was the cause. Later analysis revealed that just 5 days of exposure killed up to 12,000 people and left 100,000 more with chronic illnesses. This scale of loss was the direct consequence of normalizing a daily poison until nature concentrated it to lethal levels. The British government was initially reluctant to regulate coal, as the fuel was the primary driver of their post-war industry. Public outrage eventually forced a change in policy. In 1956, Parliament passed the Clean Air Act to address the crisis. The law mandated the use of smokeless fuels in designated zones and required power stations to be moved away from major population centers. The 1956 Act became a primary model for environmental legislation. Its success proved that direct government regulation could reverse decades of chronic urban pollution. London's air has cleared since 1952, but the same microscopic killer, particulate matter, remains a global threat. Global health experts now link millions of premature deaths every year to modern, often invisible air pollution. Much of modern society is repeating the same mistake made in 1952. We accept toxic air as an unavoidable byproduct of our global economy. The Great Smog is a warning that we can become comfortably accustomed to our own destruction unless a crisis forces a change in perspective.